right, what's up, everybody? We're back at it once again with Devon Armstrong and Carlos Taylor. This time in Alls, man. We're here to give you another dose of good medicine. How's it going, guys?
It's going on this 4th of July, and we are thankful to live in a country of independence.
Right.
Even we know who gave us our true independence.
Exactly. All right, so on this holiday week, if you want to call it that, man, I've been doing a lot of binge watching and watching some TV shows, and I was watching this one in particular show, and it brought up a very specific idea or topic, and that is the importance of hair in the black community. Now, you know, myself and Mr. Taylor here, our hair has transitioned from the top of our head to the bottom of our face.
No, bro. Mine's a haircut.
No, bro. It made me think about some, like we were talking about earlier. I can remember when I was growing up at home, going to the same barber for years. And even once I got a little older, maybe in high school, I would venture off to try other barbers. But I would always find something that I didn't necessarily like about the environment in the barbershop. Maybe they were, using too much profanity or smoke and talking crazy, got the wrong stuff playing on the TV, that kind of stuff. And so I would always end up going back to my original barber. And then once I graduated high school, went to college, I ended up being in a situation where I wasn't familiar with the new town, didn't really know anybody, and so didn't have a barber. Just so happened that one of my college classmates that came with me cut hair. Yeah. And so for 4 years, man, I was getting haircuts for the low. And then once I graduated again, I'm back at square one.
Inflation.
So yeah, haircuts went from being like $5 a pop to $25, and that's just for the cut. No shave or anything like that. Wow. And so what I wanted to ask you guys about, like, what's your perspective on the importance of making sure that you got that one barber? Because some guys, they treat their barbers like they treat their women, man. They'll either stick with one or better, or they'll bounce around just whoever don't have nobody in the chair. That's what I'm going to. So, what's your perspective on that?
I think, my perspective has always been on barbers is it's like a dojo. Like, you train there from a child, and you divide your father to go to another dojo, try to get your hair cut. It's like that. So,
okay,
like you said about in college, like you had everybody in college have that dude that cut hair, that the roommate, a friend. When I was growing up, I had a friend who he could draw really well, and I drew. That's kind of what brought us together. We like to draw, so he started cutting hair, and it's like, man, if he can cut hair, if he can draw, surely he can cut hair. He can do a line. He can do that because we draw.
Yeah, it's art.
So I sacrificed myself to be one of his first cuts.
Like how you said, sacrifice.
Yeah,
right.
And so
we've all been there.
But I noticed that the cut was going for too long, and I was like, wait a minute, I know I had this much hair. Like, why is it going so long? And so after he finished and put the mirror in front of me, it looked like I put my head in a pack of piranhas. It was just scary. It was ghastly, man. And I just left him. I marched out the room. I just said, and you can draw.
that was your...
Yeah, and you can draw.
All the things that was wrong.
And you can draw. And I put my finger around my line. I said, and you can draw. This straight to you? You need a ruler? You can draw.
Oh, my gosh.
I was so mad, man.
Oh, my gosh.
Dude, I cannot tell you the mockery. The walk of shame, going home. I had to walk home.
Right.
Walk of shame, man. Look, I'm
you
out.
have a hat with you?
No, man. I'm holding my head like it's raining.
Right.
Trying to get in the house.
Probably running a little bit.
You're over here like you're devastated. Because you oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. A bad haircut would change
your life.
Your life.
You come to Christ. Look, Look, never defy the dojo. That's all I'm saying. Don't defy the dojo.
So for me, I grew up for most of my life getting haircuts by my parents, mainly my dad. And, I wasn't usually accustomed to the barbershop unless I was with one of my cousins and, went to their barbershop or that their parents took them to. I was like, man, it's just, kind of like you said, sometimes you see things in there that you don't quite vibe with.
Right, yeah.
But, they get the results. And I guess one of the major times I remember, I went to a barbershop here and there, and I always hated it, of course, as a kid, just because, you got to sit there for an hour and just not move.
Yeah.
And sometimes they be digging into your sensitive head.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is the worst.
Yeah.
But, I guess I kind of appreciate haircuts more, of course, when, you start getting interested in women or the girls in high school. And
gotta tighten up now.
Gotta tighten up.
You just brought up something because it's amazing how much a guy will start to care about their hygiene in general when they become interested in members of the opposite sex.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
So I can remember the importance of lotion. I can remember the exact moment when lotion became important to me. I was ninth grade, sitting in class, right? And so it just wasn't a part of my routine. You take a shower, you put your clothes on, and you go.
Yeah, you just go.
And that was it. And so I can remember sitting in class and my arms, hands, just rusted. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there was a young lady who I was talking to next to me, and she made a comment about it. But what really got me was, and you would think that it would make me want to come to school rusty for the rest of my days, but what she did was she took some of her lotion out, and she rubbed lotion on my hands and my arm. It's like, let me take care. I'm like, that's what lotion to do for a person? You understand what I'm saying? And so what it turned into was me adding a lotion regimen to my hygiene. Take a bath, dry off, put the lotion on. You understand what I'm saying? Then put your clothes on, get dressed. I started getting interested in haircuts.
Yeah.
How often should I go to the barbershop? Because you got to make sure that you ain't looking ragged, and now you want to. And you just make that transition. It's almost like, and it's as a teacher, I would be amazed at the transition that students would make from their freshman year.
Yeah.
They go home for the summer, then they come back as sophomores, and they like completely different people. Their behavior has changed, their look has changed. They're just different. Yeah. And I understand that because I can remember when my mind started to transition in that direction. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
How ladies, thank you.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for y'all showing interest in us men, there's no telling what we would be walking around.
It's the only reason we say.
It's the only reason
because if it wasn't for them, we'd never say.
Yeah,
we just be doing
that and jobs.
Yeah, that and jobs.
They have a strong influence on dictating how we look. So if you're with a mate and they tell you, "Hey, I like beards," or "I like your bald head," then you find yourself
shine it up, boy.
Every week. You understand what I'm saying? You and them get it together, right? So, but that's pretty interesting. We have a very important yet sensitive topic to talk about today, gentlemen. And we're going to get into it. We're just going to dive right on in. Carlos, don't go nowhere.
Roll back.
We want to talk about probably the first of many times, dating and relationships. And so basically the context is, how do you go about dating in the 21st century while sticking to your Christian teachings, beliefs, and values? So,
have them strawberries, bro.
You ain't getting no more strawberries.
So
I need another.
Just to kind of paint the context of the landscape, that I think at this point, I know me personally, I'm not on the dating scene per se. I date one person.
That's right.
I date one person consistently on a daily basis, if you will. And so,
how long y'all been dating?
Well, if you wanna know, be truthful about it. Me and my wife have been married at 10 years as of this past June. But even before then, we began dating 7 years before that. So a lot of people are like, 7 years? Right. You 7 years? Hey, we both needed to make sure that we were ready for this. And so, those 7 years paid off, definitely. Shout out to the number of perfection.
Yes.
So,
shout out to
17 years total.
Yeah.
And we've been together. We kind of been doing this thing called us.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely have paid off. And I've learned a lot. Still learning. You know, it's like an eternal course, if you will. So,
right.
But you, sir, being the young, eligible person that you are.
Yes.
How has dating in the 21st century kind of been for you?
Well, I know this is not a subject anybody is interested in at all, so, we'll try to keep it short. But I guess I'm 27 now. I'll be 28 in October. So I guess I could say, about half my life more than half my life has been lived in the 21st century. And it is a funny kind of place to maneuver, just with all of the technology, social media, of course, everybody is familiar with it by now, and its implications, both good and bad. Even especially with a lot of people's, mindsets changing as far as what marriage looks like in, dating and, who does what. It's just a lot of things changing within a short period of time, it seems like. So I guess for me, it's been, especially as a young Christian, just learning to maneuver in what the Lord's will is, and also avoiding a lot of pitfalls that you see around you. It's just, I feel like it's tricky, and I'm definitely not claiming to have the answers, but I just know in my experiences, I've learned a lot. Especially growing up in the church, really for me, I didn't really start dating until college, but I tried to and attempted to a few times in high school, but I think that kind of goes back to the code switching we were talking about before, because I went to a predominantly white high school, and I didn't really know exactly who I wanted to be or who I was interested in. I don't think,
Understand.
But going to college, of course, that's when it starts to solidify, and I really discovered I have a strong affinity for African American young women. Definitely no diss to any other ethnicity. A beautiful woman is a beautiful woman. But, I guess learning to appreciate who I was as a black man helped me appreciate, who black women could be and who they are, definitely not just the stereotypes you see in the media. Right. Something I unfortunately believed that in my younger days, but, now it's just, being a young adult, getting out on my own, trying to play the field, I think has had its ups and downs, especially, like I said, as a Christian, because it's like you don't want to necessarily go about it the way people without the wisdom of the word go about it.
Right, yeah. Well, now, and with that being said, and we gonna be real for a second.
Let's be real.
Let's be real. When I was in the dating scene, I actually was married at 26. Okay, so if you go back and do the math, 2 years ago from now, I was 26 years old in June, doing nuptials.
Yeah,
you understand what I'm saying? And so 4 years before that, I had just graduated from college, undergrad, and so you're talking about a window where most people are just really getting their freedom.
Yeah,
I was heavily in a relationship.
Yeah.
That I don't regret.
Sure.
But prior to that, Christ was not the center of my dating and relationship advice when I was out there seeking a mate. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So if I'm gonna be real about it, first of all, when I was looking for partners, I was not looking for partners long term. That was not why I was out there searching for females. You understand what I'm saying? It's kind of like in Coming to America, while what's his name? Prince Akeem was coming to find a wife. Simon was like, you should go and sow your royal oats.
Right, yeah.
And so my oats weren't royal, but they were worthy of being sown.
They were
If that makes sense. You understand what I'm saying? And so with that mindset, which is what I believe a majority of people still practice even today, it kind of comes with its own pitfalls and perils.
Definitely. But
also its own valuable experiences in what you learn about the opposite sex.
Yeah, and about yourself.
Yeah, and about yourself. And so what I learned in those experiences, probably more so than anything else, is definitely what I did not want in a wife. What I did not want in my life partner.
Yeah.
And so it just so happens that in the middle of that, and the Lord knows He works in mysterious ways, my life partner was introduced to me in the midst of me out there doing what I did. You understand what I'm saying? It's just like hunting, so to speak. You know, you learn how to hunt.
Yeah.
It was all about getting the right bait, setting traps, and then when you catch one, being patient. Hey, that's what it was, though. You know what I'm saying? You sit up with your pack, and you all talk about, you know, how to get them. You know, how to get girls and stuff like that. And so, at the end of the day, and I'm not going to share that valuable knowledge on the podcast, but there are definitely some things that have kind of rang true through experience as to what will allow you a greater success rate for getting a partner, depending on what the result is that you want.
Sure.
Okay, and I'm speaking in real code right now.
Right.
And so if you want a partner that's going to give you a certain result, then you have to approach her a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? And so now, of course, after that was all said and done, and then the Lord has His way of teaching you and showing you a better way. You understand what I'm saying? Then you start to realize that all of that was just what it was a game. And that the true work comes in with, yes, as a man, I might be able to sleep with a lot of women, but can I trick, so to speak, one woman to say she's gonna spend the rest of her life with me? And that's when you've gotten your 12-point, you know, your 12-point buck, if you will. And so that's where it is. And so I've always been one to consider myself respectful of women. My mom taught me, so I grew up in a house full of women. My sister was actually the first person to put me up on what we would call game. My older sister would. And so the different nuances and things that you can do just to make a girl comfortable around you, and what happens when that level of comfort becomes present, it takes the interaction between you two to a different level. But what I have learned probably, and this has turned into an advice session, you know, not intended. But what I have learned probably more so than anything is the three things that will basically attract a female to you. One is confidence.
Definitely.
Right? So, but that, in order for you to be confident, that means that you have to be confident in yourself as you are, who you are. And so if you're not confident in who you truly are, it will show even when you're not trying to show it. And so that means that as a young man, you really need to take, or a woman, you need to take time to make sure that you work on yourself first. Value yourself, get yourself together, the things that you know that you want to focus on. You do those things first before you decide whether or not you want to take somebody on that ride with you. The other thing is to be, like I just said, you confidence, but you also need to know how to be yourself. Tell your corny jokes, share your interests. We were just talking a minute ago about how my wife actually had started watching a series of anime with me, and if anybody who knows my wife know that that's wild. But that is a testament to us being together and her being willing to kind of see, okay, why does he enjoy this so much? And then the last thing is just, you know, make her laugh.
Yeah.
Comedy is gold. You understand what I'm saying?
Comedy is a gift, right?
Comedy is gold.
That's why we're doing this in the first place.
Yeah. Right. But out of those three, kind of like faith, hope, and love. I think confidence is probably the most important because a woman above all wants to be with a man who's sure of himself.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And of course, there are some nuances in there that could keep it on track or derail.
Sure.
Like being honest, trustworthy, those types of things. Following through. When you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it the whole nine. And making sure that you show that you can be a protector of all things, not just physically, but emotionally, financially, the whole nine. So and none of this stuff kind of happens on the spot. Like you're not just going to wake up one morning and just have it all together. Sure. Part of it is that, and you want to find you somebody that understands this, is that you have to grow together. Mm-hmm. It's not always going to be peaches and cream. Right. You're going to have some shortfalls. Life wouldn't be what it is without resistance, without having to struggle a little bit, because without resistance, we do not get stronger. Yeah. Same thing with your relationships. So you want to make sure that you find you somebody that's like-minded, and that we're moving in the same direction. But they also need to be value added. So the things that you can't do or not as good at, they're good at, or at least have the affinity or the aptitude to be able to learn how to be good at those things. Yeah. And it just makes life so much better. It's kind of like yin and yang, if you want to go there. Just the opposites attract, that whole nine. Yeah.
So from my experience, kind of coming from a different side of that, from yours, how you grew up or how you started, how you met, your wife. Right. Like I said, growing up in church, it's like dating, sex, all that is forbidden. It's like we don't even talk about it in church, which I think is really unfortunate and harming. Yeah. So there's this mindset you come up with that, that I'm not going to do anything of the sort until, that you meet that perfect one for you. God got this person for you.
Which can be extremely difficult.
Yes.
Yeah, extremely. And especially knowing how I am.
It's like there's so much pressure you put on, like, the person that God has eventually destined you to be with. Now, personally, I don't believe in, like, just the one. I believe God can use whatever for whatever purpose, like anybody for whatever purpose. Like, kind of like your situation, even though it's not exactly like in Genesis, but when Genesis, where he says, you intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. God can make anything out of anything. He created all of this out of just with his words. Right. Yeah. But I do believe, like I was saying, this pressure we put on ourselves and the other person that we're interested in, to where it's like, and especially nowadays in our instant gratification world, in this world of, in America, land of opportunity, it's like, if this doesn't work out to the T, then I'm going to go find something else. Yeah. And it's like also trying to balance that, that must not be what God meant for me, because it's not going exactly the way I foresaw it to go. Yeah. And it's like, man, how do you balance that? And it's like, really, I'm learning, I guess, me personally, that I have to trust God with everything, first and foremost, especially if I'm following him, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I can't, I don't even control my own heartbeat. So it's really a dependency, sort of, to where it's like, I trust God to take care of my needs and get my back. Now, I might not need a wife right now, I want one, but I know God provides everything that I need when I need it. That's the viewpoint I've kind of come at it from, and you have to remind yourself that. Otherwise, you start to try to manufacture things on your own. I think that's kind of where I've messed up in the past and learned from, thankfully, that, it's like, like me personally, I had to even stop online dating, and that's not a slight against it. I think online dating is just a tool like anything else. But for me personally, I don't think it was good for me because I can be such a manic controller, and I'm very visual, and I like to make things fit and it got kind of obsessive almost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, nah, I can't be out here doing this.
And the thing and what tickles me to a certain extent is the fact that, like, in my mate, she was a complete opposite of who I was or what I thought I wanted in a wife.
Well,
but once I went through the process and we dated and we learned a lot about each other, it was like two different paths actually converging into one.
Yeah.
And now I can't see myself without it. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so and because of that contrast, what I've heard your dad say, who's also my pastor, is that when you're in a marriage, the attributes typically that God is trying to improve in you will be magnified in the other person. Yep. And so anybody who knows me, I'm a real laissez-faire, laid back. I don't really jump up and run at anything seriously. I am a chronic procrastinator. It's like part of my personality.
You're in good company.
Right. But she's very organized by the book. She believes in having a plan for everything. And so what I always tell her about, or we laugh about, is the fact that, I'm here to show you how to chill out, where you're here to show me how to get up and go.
Get going.
And so when we get together, something as simple as planning a family vacation, it becomes the perfect blend of have a planned itinerary, but also go with the flow. We might have planned to go somewhere, but if we don't feel like getting up till 10, let's not get up until 10. You understand what I'm saying? And be okay with that.
For sure.
And so that's kind of how we've grown. And after 17 years of being with somebody, you kind of look at each other and tell how you feeling and being on the same wavelength and things of that nature. And so it's an amazing journey, which is what I'm trying to drive home. So many people focus on the end point, right? Whether that's the wedding or the marriage or whatever the case may be, but understand that there's a process that gets you from point A to Z.
That's true. And
you need to make sure that you take the time to enjoy and experience every step along the way, because courtship, or whatever we want to call it now, I think that's what they called it back in the 16th century.
Courtship.
Yeah. But whatever, dating, courtship, whatever the case may be, we often get caught up in that.
Yeah.
And so little girls being raised or having that picture put in their mind about the perfect wedding.
Oh yeah.
But the focus hasn't been placed on the marriage. Whereas young men, especially if you have a father in the home, you've been driven to make sure and understand that you are the source, the provider, and that you're focused on making sure that I can take care of the family when you get there. There was something that was said to me leading up to me just determining whether or not I wanted to propose to my wife. And I was extremely concerned about having enough money to support myself and another person. And that wise person looked in my eyes and they told me, son, you ain't gonna never have enough. Right. But when it hits you, you be like, you know what? So there's no reason for me to wait.
Yeah.
If I know that, and we not saying that we're not gonna ever be okay.
Yeah.
But there's always gonna be something pulling at your pocketbook, demanding your time and attention, whatever they may be. And so I think it's more important, man, to get out there. And whatever the avenue is, we definitely want to do anything that's not of God, but leave yourself open to His will and experience it however you experience it. So if you out at some function downtown and you see a young lady, and my thing was always speaking first. Like I never had the confidence in that regard to go up and speak to a young lady, but I would always create situations to where they would basically have to speak.
Traps.
And so, right, yes, it's a trap. You understand what I'm saying? And so,
the trap saying, man.
And so, when that would happen, though, once the conversation gets started, I could pick up on whether or not I had a good chance.
Yeah.
You know, whether I needed to take the shot or not, so to speak.
For sure.
If the conversation would click.
Definitely.
And so if the conversation didn't click, and I'm a person who hates small talk.
Yeah.
So if the small talk was
Persistent.
too small, you know what I'm saying? I was like, well, you know, hey, it was nice meeting you, so forth. But with my wife now, she's the only woman that I ever approached.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? And with hindsight, looking back, you kind of like, okay, the only reason I was able to have the confidence to say something, it had to be something else in me working that. So it's not a science.
No.
You understand what I'm saying? You can't write formulas to figure out how to get a mate or whatever, anything like that. But you have to live.
Yes.
You know, if you refuse to live,
man,
then you know you won't. It won't happen for you. So,
and that ties to something you reminded me of when you were talking about how you and Chris your attributes kind of complement each other and contrast at the same time. To where, when I think of marriage, and I was thinking about this at my friend's wedding this past weekend. Shout out Brian and Evelyn, congratulations!
Congratulations
on
your nuptials! Your nuptials!
Y'all in there?
Y'all in there.
But yeah, during the ceremony, I was just thinking, like, man, like, I think it was during the prayer that somebody was praying for them. I was like, you know, and I prayed to myself, Lord, I pray that you use this combination of people to do your will in the earth, because that's essentially what I know it's for. It's like, when you think back to Adam and Eve in the Bible, or, you know, like when he was talking about be fruitful and multiply, like, it is to bear the fruit of God, to bear the fruit of the kingdom, the fruit of the spirit. You know, like, we can do it individually, sure, but it's just something about, you know, take the church in general. Like he said, it's not good the man should be alone. And, you know, that's why we have each other. Like, the church is a body. Like, we are all members joined to each other. And there's just something powerful about two people or three coming together, you know, especially in a marriage where it's a lot more intimate, to where y'all can affect your surroundings in this earth and influence God's will, you know, influence people around you as a team, you know. And it's like, I need to be in that vein already, thinking like that. Like, how can I affect this world that I live in, you know, through the power of God and His Word? And then, you know, marriage is just this accent to it, to where it's like, I can do it even better with that. Should, you know, if that is what He has given in me. You know, like Paul said, every man has their certain gift. You know, not everybody's called to marriage. You know, I don't believe, according to 1 Corinthians 7. But, you know, there is definitely something to it, especially with the whole family aspect, you know, like creating families for God's heritage in the earth.
Right, yeah.
You know, but, you know, just like you said, living life, it's like you have to live. You can't just be sitting around dwelling on that. Like, oh, I wish, you know, somebody would come to me, or
and you just made me think about something. Like, I think kind of like what I was referring to earlier, part of living in the 21st or the late 20th, early 21st century is that I'm sure there are pockets of people out there who date to marry. Yeah. And I think that's more so the Christian perspective. Mm-hmm. But then you also have a pocket of people who just date to date. Like, they're not looking like I was. I wasn't looking for anything long term, but I wanted to be in relationships. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah. That's a good way to put it, recreationally. And so I wanted the benefits of being in a relationship without actually looking for anything or expecting it to go long term. You understand what I'm saying? But what dating did for me through high school all the way up, and in high school, a long-term relationship was anything beyond 6 months to a year. So if you had a girlfriend or boyfriend for a year or longer, you all were considered an item. Right, like, you all were, that was long-term. And so what it did was, in those relationships, like you said, I learned a lot about myself. Yep. But I also learned a lot about myself in the regard of what I wanted in a partner and what I didn't want. It also taught me what I should do in a relationship and what I shouldn't do. What I should say, what I shouldn't say. What things were expedient, what things were not of profit.
That's right.
You understand what I'm saying? All of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes through the dating, the interaction. And so when I finally did find my wife, in a strange way of thinking, I was kind of like, well, you ought to be grateful to all the women that preceded you, because they taught me how not to say certain things, and what things I needed to say at the right moment. They taught me what to do, what not to do through trial and error,
through living,
through living, so to speak. And so it's a valuable part. Now, can that be done with one woman? Absolutely.
Sure.
In fact, wisdom would teach you that it should be done with one woman. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's my thing is that it's not a deal breaker. And so and I'm sure it's the same with you, without going past certain boundaries, that there were some things that you picked up from the young ladies that you interacted with, that you learned, relationships that you had.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I learned
about how the opposite sex functions.
A lot about myself.
yeah. And so,
because you notice things that you were too hardy-minded to pay attention to, or, like Jesus said, men love darkness. Yeah. And interacting with other people lets you see the light.
Yeah. But it takes me back to an earlier point I made. That's by design. That's what relationships are designed to do.
Exactly.
When you get in a relationship with somebody, whether it's casual or intimate, that other person, just like you to them and them to you, function as, some people may say magnifying glasses.
Yeah.
I'm going all the way down to microscope,
yeah.
electron microscope. They magnify certain things about yourself to allow you to see. And the only reason you won't see them is if you are loving their darkness a little too much. You understand what I'm saying? And so it brings up issues or conversations or situations that force you to kind of mature as a person.
Yep.
And that goes both ways, male or female. Yep. And so that's why it's, some people get frustrated because it just seems like that they're having unsuccess. But one thing that I've learned about God is that He is a teacher.
Yeah, absolutely.
But He doesn't teach in the way that we teach. He likes to, we like to teach you the information and then give you a test. Where He likes to give us tests. And then you get the information. So if He keeps giving you the same test over and over again and you keep failing it, that means that there's something in that you're missing, even in relationship, even in dating. So if you keep finding yourself attracted to the same type of girl and it keeps ending the same way or worse for that matter, then there's something in those situations that you need to say, well, hold up, Lord, and ask Him. So what is it that you're trying to get me to see that I keep messing up? Because I know it's me. It got to be me if I'm the common denominator in all these different situations. So.
To be real, it's because, in my opinion, it's because you want to keep failing. It was mentioned to me about the man who was by the lake, or not the lake, the pool of water that Jesus healed, who said, "Take up your bed and walk." And he was like, he had all these, when he asked him, do you want to be healed? He was like, he had all these excuses. Because he had been there, like that was been his life for like years and years. So he had grown accustomed to it. So it's like, well, yeah, it would be nice to change, but I'm so comfortable in this spot, in my bed, and it's like, do we just choose to not learn the lesson? Because,
it's very possible.
When I think about if I fail a test, and I have before, and the next time I took it, I got like 100, and it's like, it's because I wanted to pass it, and it's like in that failure, I learned what not to put on there.
Right.
And it's like, it shouldn't be that difficult. To me, anyway.
You would assume. I've been in situations where I've given the exact same test to a group of high schoolers, and many of them did worse than they did the first time. Yeah, that was a thing for me, man. I was like, so it's not me. It's y'all. But you make a very important point. You have to want it.
Yeah.
You have to want to see the change or want it in order for it to be of profit to you. So.
Mr.
Taylor, you have
no Taylorisms in this.
Nothing to add to the subject.
Why no? No, I
You say as a matter of fact.
As a matter of fact, I do not. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we while we have a moment, we want to give a shout out to everybody who's gone out and liked our page on Facebook. We have over 100 likes in just 2 weeks. Give yourselves a round of applause, man, for coming out and checking us out and supporting us. We wanted to say that we appreciate you, and please make sure you go out and share our page with your friends. We're asking that everybody just reach one with some good medicine, because it definitely brighten their day. So make sure you follow us and like us on Facebook. And just last week we updated or created a YouTube channel for our episodes. So we have big plans. We're planning to put some videos on there and do some things that are creative. And we just want to make sure that everybody's in tune with that. So go to YouTube, look up Good Medicine with the 3 faces. You know who we are, and make sure you subscribe. So we appreciate your attention. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your support.
Thank you.